大家好. Okay, so another lecture series. I think the lecture series has been, it's a good outcome. So it turns out really, really good, and I think it's been being really well received, and I think it's necessary because there's just a lot of the terminologies and theories that are being confused during translation. And not to mention, there are not a lot of documentation, like official documentation such as books being translated into English. There are a few, such as good ones like the one that Byron Jacob recently published. Just not enough of it, right? So that's why I'm creating these lecture series, both for my own students, because when they take the online lessons, I don't talk enough. I mean, I do talk a lot, but I don't talk enough. And I still remember when my teacher, when I was learning from my shifu, he talked a lot. And I think when they used to learn from Grandmaster Liu, he also talks quite much, but in a very like casual way. So it's really up to student to capture it, capture the essence through notes. So here I'm kind of like organizing my thoughts through these little like webisodes. So this week we're going to talk about 发声, which is sounds, right? So um, ever since ancient time, human beings, or not just human, we're animals too. So animals and human tend to use naturally to use sound, right? To making sounds to not just communicate, but through sounds they're able to intimidate their prey or their enemies, right? And later on, human developed drums and music instruments, and they're using it to to really we call it 壮胆, right? 壮胆 means to strengthen uh, the courage, right? So through sounds, one can start to think about, okay, and when I'm shouting, at my enemies, it not only intimidates the other person, it also somehow strengthens my strength, my power. Um, whether it's through the mind, it activates the adrenaline better, or it's just through shouting. There's something interesting that's happening within our bodies to make us stronger. And in Bajiquan, okay, in Bajiquan we have Heng Qi, Ha Qi, right? Those people who learn from me, they know about the Heng Qi and Ha Qi. We made these two sounds. That's the Bajiquan example, and we can find sounds in many other styles, Chinese martial arts, such as Xing Yi Liu He Quan, all right, the famous Xing Yi Liu He Quan. They have the yi sound, right, or the yaw sound. They have these. They call it the thunder sound, 雷声. All right. So and also in 形意拳, they also have the so-called 虎豹雷声. All right. They also make sounds to activate their internal and also to synchronize with their external movements to 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 reach a greater output of power. Hongquan in the south, Cai Li Fo, also has sound training. So this is not uncommon. And in outside of China, you have obviously karate, taekwondo. You have people make sounds. Even today, they train the kids to shout, right? So when they kick, then you have yoga, right? Yoga is a study and knowledge, ancient knowledge of through physical postures, they can activate and channel internal organs and to reach a better health. And they also use sound, like the really well known the om sound, right? So these are sounds that not only in yoga but also through religion, meditation. So these are all really ancient knowledge from ancient people. They have this thought, understanding of, hey, we can't control our internal organ muscles, right? We have stomach, we have intestine, we have lungs. So we have these and heart, and we have all these internal organs inside, but we cannot use them and flex them and train them like our external muscles, right? Obviously, we can use our lung, right? Lung is the most controllable internal organ that we have. So that's why through lung we can make sound because it channels air, input and output. So these ancestors, ancient people, they figure out through sound they can stimulate and train and activate internal organs, different parts. And we make different sounds and various different sounds from ha and hung. All right. So in BajiShu we have these two sounds. So I'm just going to use BajiShu as an example. So hung ha er qi. So we have the hung sound, which is a muffled, more chest muffled sound, and then we had ha. Okay, we have the ha sound, which uses the dantian. So these two different sounds activate different parts of the internal organs, and they have different purpose. The hung sound is more defensive. The ha sound is more offensive. For example, when you go to the gym, you lift weights, you constantly hear people like these men would be like grunting, like they would grunt. They didn't want to grunt. I mean, sometimes they do, but to show off. But naturally, when you try to, lift a heavy weight, and your body naturally would make sound, grunting sound to activate more power output. So that is a very natural human body sort of reaction when you're trying to use more power. And then from a defensive standpoint, let's say you're walking around without conscious, you walk past a football field, and then someone didn't see you and they were trying to catch the ball, and accidentally they struck you or body checked you, your body would naturally shut down, all your organ would tighten up, and then when you upon impact you would make that kind of sound naturally. And that is your body's natural defensive mechanism. So we have these natural sounds that our body makes, and then these ancient people, they say, all right, so why don't we purposely make these sounds to really train the defense, really train, activate, and enhance the offense when we make these sounds. So if you really think about it, it's really clever. And and through these sounds, one can really stimulate internal organ. The most commonly stimulated part of the internal is dantian, right? Dantian is this area in the. It's not a specific organ, but in a lot of the internal studies, dantian is the qi hai, is where your qi being stored, and these qis are being utilized and channeled to execute movements, strikes, or whatnot. So the most commonly activated um, internal power through sounds is dantian, right? So without sounds, people do breathing, right? But then if you do that in a more aggressive way, then sounds starting to come out, right? So also, I mean, something interesting in the Western world, in the ancient time, when the Europeans starting to develop, music culture, arts and music culture, and then through opera, like the opera singing. That's essentially, it's a qigong practice. If you ask any serious singers, when they try to channel their dantian, right? So they use their belly, right? Nobody taught them, right? So it's not like somebody from the East went to the West and tell them about this qi, activating qi, but it's just something that's very natural through time. People starting to figure out, if I use my diaphragm, use my belly power versus my lung to sing, I can hit a higher note. I can sing longer. I can hold a note for longer. I can exert a louder volume, so that in the auditorium, all the way in the back of the seat, people can hear me. So in opera singing, that's also kind of using internal power to exert greater power. And lastly, even modern athletes, you're starting to see. I mean, I'm starting to see a lot of the traditional martial art biomechanics being applied into modern science, right? In baseball, right? In a lot of these tennis, any sort of like very technical sports, starting to utilize legs, for example, and the internal as well. Tennis players starting to shout, after say the year 2000, right? Now every tennis player shouts, right? Before it was like, say, Monica Seles was probably the first one who start, channeling internal strength through making sound. Ultimately, what athletes and martial artists are trying to do is essentially, when they're applying a power, they're synchronizing the external and the internal through sound. When you make that sound, your internal muscle starting to being activated, being utilized, and you can synchronize. And that is a lot of way in Chinese martial when you say 六合, right? When you try to, have this harmony between the external and internal, sound is a really good vehicle to help people to achieve that. So yeah, so that's like, in conclusion, I think when you guys practice or when you learn these sounds, start to think about, why, right? So a lot of these ancient knowledge are, if you think about it in a scientific way, it all made a lot of sense, right? So which makes a think about, a lot of modern boxing. I mean, I get a lot of trash talk being like, oh, in the MMA, in the modern combat system, we can't do that. We don't use forms. We don't do this. We don't do that. But the modern combat sports is a baby compared to, all these different knowledge of in history through a thousand and hundreds of years, thousands of years of validation, right? And modern combat system is what the last 50 years or so. I mean, of course, because of science, it gets propelled and advanced really quickly, and also money as well. So my point is to, when you are learning these traditional knowledge, don't discount it too much, because ancestors and these ancient people are not idiots, and it's not like they tested it for only 100 years. They tested it for 3, 4, 5 thousands of years. So there's some value to it, and keep an open mind. And just because the current science couldn't really easily explain things doesn't mean it's wrong, right? So have a little faith, and dive deeper into it. I welcome comments and to discuss, um, at the bottom. So just keep an open mind when you're training these traditional art. All right. Okay. All right. Till next time.